This is First and Ben.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to episode 4 of my podcast, First and Ben. For any new listeners today, my name is Ben Garcia, and I want to thank you for taking the time to tune in to First and Ben. Today is Thursday, September 24th, and Tuesday was the first official day of fall. Unfortunately, that means leaves are changing colors, starting to fall, and winter is coming. And in a place like only in New York, that means cold weather and a lot of snow, which is not fun to practice in, as all the lacrosse players and just all outdoors athletes know that. It's been quite a while since my last episode, roughly 2 months since episode 3, back with Ben Berger, I believe it was. I've been pretty busy ever since. Had a lot of filming back in the end of July into August, and then moving back into school in late August. And now with fall ball well underway, I've been pretty busy with classes, lifts, practices, conditioning, schoolwork, everything. So that's why it's been a while since I've been able to record podcasts. And now with sports fully back, there's a lot of things to talk about, a lot of discussions. So there will be a lot more content on the way. If you haven't gotten the chance, make sure to click the links in the description or just head over to my channel page to find any of the prior 3 podcast recordings in which I've gotten to talk to Malcolm Bell from the University of Hartford men's lacrosse team and Ben Berger from the baseball team here at St. Bonaventure University. Both pretty good episodes. I did episode 2 by myself, and I'm also doing this episode 4, by myself. And hopefully we'll be able to get another college athlete, on the next episode, whenever that will be. So now, today's episode is going to be a good one, as we are diving into a lot of different topics, and they're going to be full of discussion, including an analysis of college football, both what's going on and what makes it great, thoughts on the future of this season in college basketball as different discussions and the tip-off date was just released, an update on the NBA playoffs, and last night was a really good one between the Miami Heat and Boston Celtics. The disappointment of the Philadelphia Eagles. It's tough being an Eagles fan, just really a Philadelphia fan as of now, and trying to figure out what's going on with the Birds. And finally, we'll wrap it up with what are the best styles in lacrosse, mainly college lacrosse, from helmets to uniforms to flow to eye black. If you haven't already subscribed here to my channel, make sure to do so, as we're close to hitting the 100 subscriber mark. Also, make sure to go follow my Instagram accounts. My personal is at Ben_Garcia3, and my content account is at garcia.studios. On the Garcia Studios, I post a lot of videos I make, some different pictures I take, other content, edits, all that stuff, including the preview to each episode, including today's. Enough with all that. Let's dive into our first topic of college football. So like I said, college football is back. Everything's buzzing again in the football world. And looking now at the AP Top 25 poll for Week 4, again, we got teams in here that probably wouldn't be here in any other season. We look at some of the receiving votes, but you always have other teams that are just popping in there. But in the top 25, we got Marshall at 2-0, coming in at 25. We got Army, who usually is a good team. They're not a bad team, so that's not too much of a surprise. They're at 2-0 and have dominated. They're coming in at 22. Pitt, surprisingly, 2-0. They're at 21. And the Raging Cajuns of Louisiana, they are at 19, 2-0. Came off a big win on the road at Iowa State in Week 1, and then survived Georgia State this past Saturday in overtime, winning on a sweep out to the right. Then you got BYU at 18, only played one game, that was against Navy, but they dominated the midshipmen. I want to say it was 55-3. Memphis at 17. You got Cincinnati all the way up at 14 at 1-0. You got the UCF Knights 3 seasons, a couple years off of their national championship campaign. So they're climbing back up the rankings. Miami at 12, UNC at 11. UNC has potential to be very good. And going back to Miami, they've looked dominant compared to Miami last 2 seasons. They had one good year a couple of seasons back where people asked, is the U back? They had the turnover chain, but then they fell apart. Their quarterback situation wasn't the best, and they were just so reliant on their defense that their offense was, once their offense and defense weren't on the same page, it was all trouble from there. So good to see the Hurricanes getting back into contention. And then Texas at 9. Everyone always says Texas back. I don't believe it until I actually see them prove it. Then you got Auburn at 8, who hasn't played, obviously, because of the SEC. Same with Texas A&M at 10. Then you got Notre Dame at 7. You got 3 SEC teams at 6, 5, 4, LSU, Florida, Georgia, 3 Oklahoma, 2 Alabama, and number 1 Clemson. And obviously we will be seeing Ohio State enter the polls. Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan. Those teams will definitely change the rankings. And then you got the Pac-12, Utah coming in, Oregon. You got them. So a lot of those smaller teams that are in the rankings right now, they got to enjoy it while it lasts, as they might be bumped out as soon as the other teams start to play in October into November. And going off of the top 25 rankings in the college football playoffs, let's talk about my personal bucket list for college football. There's always the big games people always want to go see, the big stadiums, the big time programs, the atmosphere. But what are some stadiums and games that are must see if you're a college football diehard fan? So for me personally, I have a list of some schools that I've been to: Rutgers, UNC, Miami, Toledo, but then also got to see a SEC game of South Carolina, a Big Ten game of Michigan, and have seen stadiums but not actually been to a game at Duke, Louisville, and Utah. So definitely want to try to hit at least one team from every power conference and see if I can get any of those unique stadiums. And speaking of those unique ones, the Blue Turf of Boise, it's not a huge stadium. They're not a powerhouse program anymore. They used to be pretty good for years following their Fiesta Bowl. But just going to a game in Boise at the Blue Turf, not a lot of people get to say that they did that. Hawaii would definitely be a unique one, just because it's Hawaii, it's in paradise and everything. And then North Dakota State, they're a dominant FCS team. They beat a lot of FBS teams, especially on the road. So going to Fargo and seeing a game there with the Bison would definitely be something cool. And then on top of that, I know they got to host College Game Day. So College Game Day would definitely be something that I feel college students always want to be and want the game day to be at their school. And being at a school without football, I'm not really going to get it as a student. So just being able to go somewhere and go to College Game Day just one time would be pretty fun. And then going into the big time stadiums and those teams that preferably, I'm a big night game guy just because the atmosphere is just different. You got the lights on, you got more people. It feels like more people. It's just going to be rowdier. The first team I have on here is Enter Sandman, Virginia Tech. If you haven't seen Enter Sandman for Virginia Tech, especially at night, just go to YouTube, just look it up. The atmosphere is crazy. Everybody's jumping up and down to Metallica. You got the whole stadium rocking as the team walks across the practice field over to the stadium. Definitely a unique experience and definitely want to see that in person. And then going down to Penn State, a night whiteout game. Go to YouTube, go check out the very first play of Michigan at Penn State. Place was so loud, Michigan couldn't even get the first snap off. They had to call a timeout. And just seeing my friends that go to Penn State, just the atmosphere at a game, definitely something got to see. And the next few schools that can kind of clump together, like I said, I went to a South Carolina game during the day. But going to other SEC stadiums, LSU, Alabama, Texas A&M, I would love to go. That's something that you got to go see as a college football fan. Going out west, you got Oregon. I mean, it's Oregon, Autzen Stadium. It's right near the Nike headquarters. It's all green and yellow, everything there. Definitely be a fun experience. And then Notre Dame. Notre Dame's an interesting one because that's something that a lot of people have on their bucket list. When I was looking up other people's go-to stadiums, there's just something about that doesn't really have the same appeal to me. But a lot of people talk about it, so I feel like that's kind of something that maybe we want to check out. But just the touchdown Jesus and everything, I feel like that would just be a pretty cool experience. And then going down to the games, list of games that every college football fan should have on their bucket list. And for me personally, a lot of them are rivalry games. You got the Iron Bowl, Alabama, Auburn, the Kick Six. They've had some pretty crazy endings to games. Harvard, Yale. That one, although again, think football, not everybody thinks Harvard, Yale, but that's on a lot of people's lists just because it just sells out and it's such a big time game for those two programs. They don't have playoffs in the Ivy League for football. They're not a part really of the FCS playoffs. So that would be a fun game to go to. And then you got LSU, Alabama. Those two teams have been pretty dominant for like ever. So seeing those teams go head to head would definitely be a fun game to watch. Then you got Michigan, Ohio State. You got two teams. One's been more dominant than the other, but both teams are always a top 15, top 10 caliber teams. And they're both always, whoever wins that game, usually before Ohio State's dominance, would win the Big Ten. And it's always like a three-way battle between Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State to get to the Big Ten championship game. So it will definitely be a fun experience, whether at the Horseshoe or at the Big House. And I'll tell you what, the Big House, that was an atmosphere. Wasn't exactly loud because it was a noon game on a Saturday in which they were losing to Air Force, I believe. But that was a big stadium. Haven't been in a stadium that big before. So would definitely love to see that game, maybe at Ohio State, just so that I can also see the Horseshoe. And then moving on to Miami, Florida State. Haven't been a Miami fan. I've been to, I don't know how many Miami games, not a lot, but would definitely love to see Miami, Florida State at Miami, to see Hard Rock Stadium rocking on a Saturday night between these two rivals, a rivalry that goes way back, includes a lot of national championships, a lot of All-Americans, NFL players. You got wide right, wide left. Florida State dominated the rivalry for years, and then Miami's came back and has started to get some more wins as of recent. So definitely that would be a lot of fun. Army, Navy. It speaks for itself. Having, growing up right outside of Philadelphia, it's always in Philly, except for the few times they go down to Baltimore or DC. But Army Navy would definitely be a lot of fun to watch and go in person. Just the whole atmosphere, it just leaves you speechless. And then going on from the Army Navy game, because that's usually the last game of the season for the regular season, you got the bowl games. So just one of those major bowls, but one game in particular, the Rose Bowl. I mean, the flyover picture every year is crazy. Just the whole Rose Bowl parade and the tradition of that game. And what also makes that game extra special is that it's also a college football playoff game from time to time. So if it's not a college football playoff game, then I would want to see whatever is a college football playoff game or even the national championship. Don't know if I will ever be able to afford the national championship game. But if I somehow was able to work it, cover it, just somehow get tickets to it, that would be number one. And then moving on from the bucket list, we got probably the discussion that matters most in college football, the mascot mashup in NCAA Football 14. Who truly is the best mascot to use in the video game? Now, I got a top 5, not exactly in order, but 5 of my favorite players, 5 of my favorite mascots to use. And then there's number 1 is number 1 for everybody and has to be, no debate. So no order, 5 through 2, we got Sebastian Davis from University of Miami. You got Florida's Albert. You got the alligator there. No, he's got the big mouth. Pretty shifty, breaks a lot of tackles. You got Michigan State's Sparty. I mean, he's jacked. Who's going to bring down that guy? Nobody. And you got the very shifty, hard to catch up to and to tackle in the open field, Oklahoma State's Pistol Pete. And finally, number 1, which everybody already knows what I'm about to say, is the Stanford Tree. I mean, there's nothing like the Stanford Tree. Best mascot in sports, hands down. Look from the mascot apparel standpoint. And if you look back at the old school Stanford Tree, I mean, that's character. There's nothing like it. No one's really seen anything like it. You got some other unique ones in other college sports and basketball, but for college football, Stanford Tree, easily, hands down, number 1 mascot for mascot mashup in NCAA Football 14. So overall, glad to see college football's back. Glad to see everything starting to, get that college football atmosphere again and a little bit of normalcy with that returning. And with college football already back, we go into our next topic for tonight, college basketball. As reported last week, college basketball is returning, and the first games of the season can start on November 25th. Now, some teams, they have, I know for St. Bonaventure, their tournament that they're in, they're supposed to be down the Atlantis in the Bahama area, and their tournament has now been moved just to the States and inland, and they tip off on November 25th. Some teams have pulled out of certain tournaments. Some teams have pulled out of other, ACC, Big Ten, just those type of classics and showcases. Because one of the things that they're going to do in order to try to maintain a college basketball season is they're going to follow the NBA's role, and they're going to create bubbles in which they're going to have, for St. Bonaventure being outside of Buffalo, we might have a bubble which includes UB, Niagara, Canisius. You can get a couple other teams from this area and put them in one bubble, and then you got multiple non-conference games, and maybe you put conference teams into their own bubble and work that around. But the problem is, why the NBA can have the bubble and it'll be harder for, the NCAA is due to the fact that they're professionals. They're not amateur athletes, as Mark Emmert, president of the NCAA, always says, and those who are against the payment of college athletes. They say they're amateurs. They're students first. They're not treated like professionals, so we should not treat them like professionals. They should not get rewarded like professionals because they are, at the end of the day, students. So if they are students and they're amateurs, why are they being put into bubbles to make sure that the NCAA makes money off of them and put them away from the university sites and pull them away basically from society and trap them into bubbles and say you are playing basketball only. As a basketball player, you're getting to play the sport and you're getting to just be in a bubble and hang out. Seems like a good situation. You're going to play basketball. I mean, I want to play lacrosse, being a lacrosse player. I got my season taken away last season due to COVID. And those basketball players returning from last year, a lot of them, they didn't get their tournament. They didn't get their conference tournaments. They didn't get March Madness. So they want a season 2. So for them, they're willing to do that. But for people trying to say that it's not, that having these bubbles does not make them a professional athlete, they've already been professional athletes. They always have been, always will be. Why is it a coincidence that you go to any of those? And why is it? It's not a coincidence when you go to a big time university bookstore and see a basketball jersey with the number 50. I would go visit my brother at University of North Carolina. Go to the bookstore. There's a number 50 jersey. Oh, there's a Tyler Hansbrough jersey. I want that. That's not a Tyler Hansbrough jersey, they'll tell you. Well, at least that's what the NCAA and all those people will tell you. That's not a Tyler Hansbrough jersey. That's a North Carolina basketball jersey that just happens to have number 50, the AP Player of the Year from the year prior. Just happens to have his number on it. Or 14 for Danny Green, or 5 for Ty Lawson. Then where's number 1, Marcus Gilliard? Where's the jerseys for the guys that are on the bench, since they're ironic? They don't have them because they only have, ironically, these numbers of the stars. But they're not selling using the image or likeness of the players, because that would be professional. But they're amateurs, remember that. Remember all those billboards with them? They can't make money off of that because they're amateurs. That's not using their image or likeness. It just happens to be them. They're not making money off that billboard. That's my take on the bubbles. Again, I'm not going to go deeper into the should they be paid, which they should be, or make money off of just their name and everything. Not going to go into that anymore, but going to the next topic for college basketball is the March Madness. I just mentioned how last year's March Madness was canceled. A lot of conference tournaments were canceled before they were finished. And the proposal from the ACC back in the beginning of September, led by Coach Krzyzewski, is that every Division I team should be allowed to play in March Madness. Every eligible team should automatically make March Madness. And when you break it down number-wise, there are 357 Division I men's basketball programs in the NCAA across the country. Of those 357, you got 346. So now, compared to what's usually about a 64 team field, and then you got the playing games, and so it's supposed to work by, you have the 4 playing games, then you can get those 4 spots filled for 64, and it just divides by 2 evenly down to the national championship and the winner of one team. You take the 346. Let's say everybody just had a game to play at first. Divide that by 2. Got 173. Now you're already at least one team not being able to play. So let's say one team gets a bye. 172 divided by 2, 86. Divide that by 2, 43. Now you're at another standstill. So it's 42 divided by 2, 21. You can't divide that by 2 again. So it creates a whole mess for the NCAA and the March Madness and the selection committee on how are they going to schedule and how are they going to seed 346 teams into one tournament. How are they going to make it work? Is it possible? Probably. But it's too much of a mess to work with. And really, if one of those teams loses in the first round, one of those ACC teams that was for, hey, let's get everybody, you already know they're going to be the first ones complaining about so many teams being in this and their team not having a bye into like the round of 128, something like that, round of 64, not having a bye until then. Going to complain why we have to play this and there's too many games, players are getting tired, they're getting hurt. So it's too much of a mess. The NCAA shut it down. Smart move by the NCAA. That would be too much to handle, but it is going to be a mess with how are they going to schedule everything and then get their at-large bids into the tournament and who's got the strength of schedule, because if you're just playing your conference scheduled and what does that really say about you, then it turns into, oh, the ACC is a good conference, so they're going to get like half of their teams, and the smaller leagues, they're not going to really get as much because they couldn't get a good strength of schedule, or just the teams that are the A10, for example. You know, if you come up and if you finish in second place for the A10, but you weren't able to have those big time games. St. Bonaventure beat Rutgers last year. Rutgers ended up being a top 15, top 20 team. And then this year, let's say St. Bonaventure comes in second in the A10. Now it's they never got that Rutgers win to help their resume, and they're left outside. But NC State or Virginia, who may not have all these conference wins, gets to go in because of their name. So college basketball is going to be a mess. You know, playoffs for both college football and college basketball, which is going to be a mess. But hopefully things can just get better in terms of COVID, and just everything in the world can improve, so then we can get March Madness and college football playoffs. Speaking of playoffs, we're going to jump into topic number 3, and that is the NBA playoffs. Last night, Miami Heat took on the Boston Celtics. Miami Heat were up 2-1 in the series going into last night. And then a man by the name of Tyler Hero went off. Tyler Hero, 14 for 21 from the field, including 5 for 10 from 3 for 37 points. I mean, this man, like all of the tweets and everything says, he is a walking bucket. Miami Heat won this game by just 3 points, 112 to 109. But that's what makes but the bubble has been so entertaining. Every game has been a good one. Unless you're a Sixers fan, you got swept in the first round, but nothing new with that in Philadelphia sports. But sticking back to the NBA playoffs, the Heat, they are good. They were not the highest ranked team in the playoffs, seeding wise, but they are a team. I mean, they just come together and they ball. They don't care who gets the credit. They just want to win. Last night was Tyler Hero's night. 37 points. They needed that from him. He finished with 37. You know, they got Tyler Hero. They got Jimmy Butler. In order to win the series, mainly just any of the series in the NBA playoffs, you need to play as a team. Just one guy is not going to win you a series. Look at the Bucks. Giannis wanted to be the guy. They didn't really have the help or just the team chemistry. They were bumped. You look at the Clippers. They're up 3-1 on the Nuggets. They were bumped. I mean, for the Clippers, how do you blow that? You brought in all this talent, and you can't get to the Western Conference Finals. You can't get that LA battle that everybody wanted. So for the Heat, having Hero and Butler being two of those key guys, and everybody just doing their role, doing their job, and having one more key contributor, having those three like scoring threats, like the biggest scoring threats. Right now it was Dragic. Those three together and everyone else doing their job, getting rebounds, playing defense, just distracting the guy, taking the man away. It's why they're on the doorstep of going to the NBA Finals. But as we've learned for the last, I don't know how many years, 3-1 is not a safe lead. So the Heat have to finish this out. I'm wearing my Shaquille O'Neal Miami Heat jersey right now in support of the Heat because I support Jimmy Butler after what the Sixers did to him, letting him walk and trading him, I believe, getting Josh Richardson. Elton Brand saying this will all make sense upon getting rid of him and JJ Redick, which made no sense because we got swept in the playoffs. But it is what it is. Happy for the Miami Heat. Happy for Jimmy Butler, kind of. Tyler Hero and all those guys. One win away. Finish it out. Beat Boston. Going out to the Western Conference, we got the Nuggets and the Lakers. The Lakers up 2-1 the series. Currently, in the first quarter, the Lakers lead 29-23 following the Lakers timeout. And Anthony Davis playing pretty well right now. The Nuggets were one defensive stop away from being up 2-1 in this series rather than down 2-1. But AD's shot, nice shot, bounce pass to him coming around wide open. Fadeaway three, yelling Kobe. He's going to make that most of the time. So for the Nuggets, in order for them to stay in this series and not fall down 3-1 or just to lose the series, they cannot let the Lakers get hot. From what I've seen in the third game, of the Nuggets Lakers, the fourth game of the Heat Celtics, and just what happens and how it is, you cannot let three guys or two guys and then other guys play well on the other team because they're going to win. Like I said with the Heat, that Hero, Butler, and last night Dragic, and they won 112-109. In game 3 when the Lakers played the Nuggets, LeBron had 30, AD had 27. Like the next was Caldwell Pope. He had 12. Someone else had 14, I believe. But Caruso, he only had 2 or whatever it was. He only had single digits, 2, 3, or 4, something like that. Whoever gets more contributors will win the game and will win this series. If you only have 2 guys putting up all those points and your team can't get hot and have multiple guys contributing, you're going to be packing your bags. So looking on those 2 series, who do I have going to the finals? I got Heat and Lakers meeting in the NBA Finals. And as much as I would like the Heat to win, I want the Lakers to get that one for Kobe. So I got Lakers in 6 or 7 over the Heat. I just think they're too much for the Heat. As we move on to the fourth topic, which I am starting to regret putting on for today's episode, the Philadelphia Eagles. It is a tough time to be a Birds fan. I'm trying to tell myself it's just 2 games, doesn't make the season. We're not going to win the next 14. Nothing has shown that we're going to win the next 10. So it's going to be a tough rest of the season. We just don't look good. We got off to a hot start in Washington against the football team. We got off to a hot start in Washington against the football team. But we collapse. Plain and simple, we just collapse. It sucks when you don't have your star receivers getting all the reps as they should be. Deshaun Jackson not playing all the reps. No, they're trying to preserve him. And Jalen Reagor just hurt his thumb, just got surgery on it. And then you have your offensive line getting hurt. What are we doing? I mean, I remember when it was like 10 years ago, and I would always say, why are we drafting another offensive lineman? It's like every year, our first round pick seemed to be like some type of lineman, offense or defense. And that built up to 2017, our line just being strong. But just because they want us a Super Bowl, they're getting old. Our line is getting old. They're getting hurt. Again, I don't know what's going on with athletic trainers because we're constantly hurt. Constantly have players at every position hurt. But having old linemen is not going to help. Old in terms of football age. So we need some more youth on that line to protect Carson, Jalen, whoever is at quarterback, whoever is in at running back. And going to Carson, we got to get him moving. I know he gets hurt, but he's gotten hurt just standing in the pocket more than, yeah, he tore his ACL running against the Rams and diving for a touchdown. But just standing there, he's gotten hit before and gotten injured, or at least just slow to get up. If we can't protect him and he's not as good inside the pocket, we got to get him on the run. That's what he's best at. Have him running outside or have him scramble and then stop outside the pocket for a quick second or two so he could scan and get away from the pressure. And he can run. There's open space, let him run, but be smart and slide. He's been turning over the ball a lot this season. In the past, he's fumbled a couple times when running because he doesn't exactly slide. He tries to dive or he just gets hit because he doesn't even go down. So for Carson, he's got to take care of that football. We can't win games when we're just giving it to the other team. Insanity, doing the same thing, expecting different results. We can't turn over the ball and expect to win. Got to protect the ball. Got to. So for him, throw the ball away. Don't force it, just throw it away. And then for our defense, we just get picked apart too easily. Jared Goff started off the game at least 12 for 12, maybe 15 for 15. I forget what it was. But he was perfect, I want to say, at the end of the first quarter. Can't allow that. We got to stop opposing teams' aerial attack, or else we're just going to get picked apart each week. If we're not scoring all these points, then we got to get stops. Even if we are scoring all these points, we need to hold the other team to less points than us. Went down the hole against the Rams, fought our way back, but both offense and defense struggled late in the game. So defensively, we just got to stop the pass. Birds are too much. I don't know what to do with them. I guess we really made a sacrifice with the devil for that Super Bowl. But gotta believe. Sundays I'll chirp the Eagles and say I can't root for them. But at the end of the day, I bleed green, so see what happens this week. We got 0-2 Cincinnati. Usually I'd say, all right, we got this, but don't know. You just don't know. Finally, moving on to the last category and last topic of the day, we got style in lacrosse. Now, what does that really mean? The stereotypes of lacrosse, like in terms of style, flow, the tilt of helmets and just helmets in general. I'm a big eye black guy, so different styles of eye black and uniforms. Not going into the whole sock cleat debate, white socks with black cleats, black socks, white cleats, all black, all white, team colored socks. Not going to go into those. Because whatever the player wants in terms of that is what they want, even though some look better than others. I'm not too picky with that stuff. I just don't like the team color socks. Not big on that. Used to be, but not anymore. But anyway, with the whole flow thing, that's one thing that's I've never really been a fan of. Well, I did have long hair my junior year of high school. That was complicated, but I did cut it, get a short cut again halfway through the season. But it appears that long hair is on the way out in the sport of lacrosse. Look at a lot of the players, besides from like Cole Williams, Kyle Marr, I believe Kyle's graduated, and Cole, I believe he might be coming back for fifth year. But it appears that long hair is out. Even Ryan Drenner, once he got into MLL, he cut his hair, I believe. But long hair seems to be less of a thing in college lacrosse. But tilt will forever be a big topic of discussion within the lacrosse community and lacrosse world. Some players, they just naturally have tilt. Just however their head is shaped, no matter the helmet, they can get tilt. Some other players, they just don't have it. Whether they don't care about tilt, whether they don't want it, or if it's just a struggle for them to get tilt. But for me, I didn't have tilt beginning of my high school career when I first used an R. The R's had came out my 8th grade year, I want to say. And I got to high school, got new helmets, got the R. Didn't really have tilt. I didn't care. Couldn't really get it. Then when I got to Springfield, got a new R helmet, and naturally I was able to get better tilt with it. Don't know why the two different helmets, both R's, I was able to get different tilts, but it is what it is. And then with the S helmet, like what I was saying, how some helmets, your head shape just doesn't really hurt or whatever. I'm one of those guys, the S helmet, I always try to have the tilt, but it just digs into your forehead. No other players have a problem with that, some don't. Just the style of the helmet, I guess. I haven't worn anything but a Cascade before, so can't really tell you what the tilt, how it's like to get tilt on other helmets. And then going to the eye black standpoint, the combination of long hair, having good tilt, and triangle eye black. Now that was the 2000s into the 2010s. You got Tim Desco from Syracuse. You got Ryan Drenner from Towson. You got Colin Heacock from Maryland, among others. They all wore CPXR, R, and S helmets. And then you got the Bratton twins, Shamel and Ramel. They both had whatever those helmets were that UVA wore. It looked like a two-piece helmet. But then once they got to the Pro 7s, then they got some good tilt going. They got some pretty good tilt once UVA switched up. But again, going back to it, see more players with short hair. And then the eye black thing. One-sided eye black, I'm not a fan. And honestly, from what other people say, what I jokingly will say, if you're not a stud player, the players that can really pull off the one-sided eye black are really the stud players. You look at Syracuse, I think it was Nate Solomon, is the older Solomon brother that was at Syracuse. He wore one-sided eye black. He was a baller. He can ball. He can pull it off. Ryder Garnsey switched it up to one side. Ryder Garnsey's kind of good at lacrosse. But otherwise, not a fan. Just don't, I don't know, it looks weird. Smear eye black, you just have kind of thick lines and you just smear it. That's a good look too. Sevens, an underrated style. Eye black. And then just a traditional triangle eye black. Those are hard to make eye black look bad unless you just wear just like one line down your face. Just do something weird with the eye black. Otherwise, I'm a big fan. So then going into kind of my personal best and worst styles of lacrosse, what to do and what not to do. So my favorites, again, I went over the best players in terms of like tilt, maybe like tilt hair to eye black combo. You got Tim Desco, who had it all. You got Ryan Drenner, who had it all. Heacock, the Chamel, the Bratton twins. Once they got the Pro 7, they just looked like ballers. And what all these guys have in common are the Cascade helmets, the S, the R, the CPXR, and the Pro 7. Pro 7s, they're an old helmet, but usually the guys that wear that in high school are the ballers. You look at boys Latin. When I played them my junior year of high school, they all had CBXRs and Pro 7s. Forget what their face-off guy Glatz had. Again, it was one of those kind of like egg-shaped helmets, but he could pull it off. He's a baller. But those helmets, they're the best ones. No one else can really compare. And then in terms of jerseys and uniforms, any jersey that you can actually read the numbers. Being a film guy now, you go to a tournament and there's a team wearing, or even in high school, I haven't played against teams that do this. If a team has navy uniforms and navy numbers with like a tiny small outline of the numbers, especially white. You got a white uniform and you got like a very light baby blue or very light yellow going around the number of a white number on a white jersey. It's hard to see. I'm watching a Crabs game this summer on YouTube. It's Crabs versus Team 91 Maryland. Crabs got yellow uniforms and they got white numbers without a outline. I think maybe they had an outline, but you can't tell the number on the screen. When you're watching the game, you just don't know who's who. So jerseys with readable numbers, and then mesh hole throwback jerseys. What Under Armour did with a lot of the jerseys last year and 2 years ago. Those are nice jerseys. I like them. It's a throwback. I think they're pretty cool. And then going to the worst, I'm not a big fan for most sleeveless jerseys. Some teams, they're mainly, again, the mesh hole jerseys tend to be the Under Armour teams, and the sleeveless jerseys tend to be the Nike teams. Not all Nike and not all Under Armour, but just not a big fan of 99% of the sleeveless jerseys. They'll sometimes look all right, but most of the time it's not the best look. Not the worst, not the best. And on top of that, the real tight uniforms. I'm watching Georgia Tech UCF on Saturday. Georgia Tech's wearing very, very tight jerseys. I know football, you want a tight jersey, but it's lacrosse, no one's grabbing your jersey. And the quarterback for Georgia Tech, when he's standing there, they kind of show like a close-in on him. And his shoulder pads were pretty small on top of that. So it looked like it just made his helmet and head look bigger than it is, just because of the deception from the really tight jersey. Looks like youth football practice if they're just having a walkthrough. So the tight uniforms in lacrosse, I'm not a big fan of, because no one's trying to grab your jersey, so why does it have to be real tight? Again, I went on about jerseys with the same colored numbers as the jerseys. If you're wearing a Stallion helmet, you automatically do not have good style. Second bar syndrome. What's funny about that is there are plenty of guys who have second bar syndrome, but are better off. They're better players with second bar syndrome than without it. There are guys in college who, they have second bar syndrome. The guy from Rutgers who plays for the Atlas, I forget his name off the top of my head. He had second bar syndrome. He was like a two-way midi for the Atlas, or for the Archers, excuse me. Guy from the Archers, from Rutgers, he had second bar syndrome. He balled out in the PLL championship series. And there's some guys who have that, and then they're able to fix their helmet maybe the next year to where they have tilt, or at least somewhat of tilt. And it seems like they just do better with the second bar syndrome. Don't know if that's a real thing, but in my eyes it is. And then you have Connor Fields, who is an example of players who just ball out with second bar syndrome. Freshman year at Albany, when our helmet, I think, looking through that second bar, he broke out as a freshman. I was just a complete baller at Albany and the PLL. So honestly, all those things, it's really, again, these are just my takes on those best styles and everything, but if you ask most guys, they're going to agree with the same thing. And looks like that will wrap up things for today's episode. So thanks again for everybody tuning into today's podcast. Again, make sure to follow all my social media. It's down below in the description. I hope everyone has a good day. Thank you again for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next episode of First and Ben. Have a good one.